Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of Photo Talk Plus. We're here tonight with my lovely co-host Lotus Carroll, interviewing the great Gordon Laing. Gordon, how are you?
Hi, Thomas. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on, you guys.
Good.
Do you want a quick intro? Are we doing those, or?
Well, we're going to do those in a second. Before we do that, we are going to have Lotus introduce everybody here. So, Lotus, you want to introduce what we got going on tonight?
Right. So when I call your name out, do give a quick intro, you know, where people can find you on the web, who you are. And we'll save you for last, Gordon, because you're special. You'll have to wait.
In all the wrong ways.
Oh. That's why we love you, Gordon. Okay, let's start off with Cynthia Pion.
Hi there. So yes, of course, you can find me you-know-where here on Google+, and my Twitter handle is Eating Cookies, and I'm actually known for cookies, baking them.
I heard you made some really great cookies for a photo walk not too long ago.
Oh, yeah. I had some Google+ ones, and I actually had some interesting ones that said T-Hawk on them.
Yes.
Nice.
My first official cookie.
I haven't had a cookie yet. Cynthia, you'll need to get on that.
You need to come on the list.
Okay, let's move along. We've got Doug K.
Hey, I'm Doug K, and you can find me on Google+. I am the beneficiary of many of Cynthia's cookies, and that's a great honor. I am a retired tech executive and now a full-time nonprofit photographer, meaning I'm not a pro, but I do it as much as I can. That's my life. Oh, and you can find me at Doug K, K-A-Y-E, everywhere, including DougK.com.
Doug, you've got an impressive-looking oscilloscope in the back there.
Oh, here, we can solve that. Okay, how's that, guys?
Aww! I love that stuff.
Okay.
I'm in the studio.
I'm going to turn it back just for you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we've got Mike Wysek.
Hey, everybody. I'm Mike. I work at Google. I take pictures. I don't know what else I can say. I'm eating Chinese food right now for dinner.
What you got there?
Excellent.
I have some garlic chicken, a little bit of rice, and a couple pieces of orange chicken. It's quite good.
Awesome. You work at Google, you like Chinese food, you take photos.
I think that would qualify me for the Miss America pageant interview questions, maybe.
Great. Thanks for being on, Mike.
Cool.
Up next, we've got Nicole S. Young.
Everyone, like Lotus said, my name is Nicole. I'm a photographer. I'm an author. I have print books, ebooks. I'm writing a couple of ebooks right now. My most recent, I have it here so I can plug it. My most recent print book is Food Photography, From Snapshots to Great Shots. So it's kind of my pride and joy right now at the moment. You can find me at my blog. Kind of links me everywhere else. NicolesyBlog.com. It's Nicolesy. And that's me.
Yeah. Nicole, when I was in Utah this past week, I was in the Picture Line camera store.
Yeah, Picture
and I saw two of your books there, and I was like, look at Nicole.
Yeah,
that was cool.
They're awesome. They always have my books out on display. I always thought that was
Yeah, they had them all lined up. It's really cool. All right. Now we come to the man of the hour, Gordon Laing.
Thanks, Lotus. My name's Gordon. My job is to test digital cameras, and I publish those reviews at cameralabs.com. I've been a journalist for about 20 years, and right now I'm testing the Canon EOS 5D Mark III, which I believe Thomas has got, and everyone's very excited about. So I've already got loads of results and samples
Got three of
for
them
this.
here, I think.
Cool.
I have one right here, too.
Oh, come on, bring it up. Bring it up. Join the party.
Oh. This is a Mark III love fest.
I hate you all.
So, if you want to see image quality for those, if anyone hasn't got one yet, for the few people here who haven't got one, I've got tons of sample images and movies and results and stuff. So check that out. It's looking very promising. But I get the D800 this weekend, so that'll be the real test for it.
Well, that's the first topic we're going to talk about tonight, isn't it, Thomas? These cameras.
Yes, the new super cameras from Nikon and Canon. We are going to talk about that tonight. So before I get into that, though, which is our first topic, actually, our first official topic, I did want to take a second and show everybody the...
You're getting too far away from your mic. Can't hear you.
All right, here we go. I'm showing everybody the amazing +1 collection book.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Has everybody gotten that or a copy of this yet?
Mm-hmm.
This is the limited edition book, which was the very nice one. And you can see here it's got some wonderful pictures inside of it. It was published by Blurb. They did a very, very nice job with it. So congratulations to Yvonne Makarov. I don't know, they had an article on Forbes this week on the book. I don't know if you guys saw that.
It's been everywhere.
Yes, it's been all over the place. So the
CNN, CNBC, everywhere.
Yes, it's a popular book. So I know a lot of you contributed to it as well. So, oh, Lotus, you've got one there too, huh?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Look, my sister took this picture.
Okay. So if you haven't gotten it yet, check it out and make sure to get a copy of it.
I got mine this week. It actually arrived. Anyone who's done any international orders, mine arrived in New Zealand last week, and it looks fantastic.
Wonderful. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, so first topic tonight are the new cameras. The Canon 5D Mark III and the Nikon D800. Why don't we go straight to you, Gordon? You are the enviable editor of Camera Labs. Tell us, what do you think of these programs, these new cameras?
Well, the D800, all I can say is just based on looking at the specifications and what come out so far, because I haven't actually had my hands on one. That's going to change this weekend, and believe me, I'm going to get some really nice comparative results between that and the Mark III up on the site as soon as possible. But I have been testing the Mark III solidly for over a week now, and we've been blessed by some pretty nice weather where I'm based in Queenstown, New Zealand. And it's performing really well. I've been doing a lot of comparisons against the Mark II, which I think a lot of people are very interested in, because superficially they appear to have almost the same resolution, but they are in fact very different cameras, not just in terms of the features that we can talk about, but in terms of their image and movie quality is also quite different. The ultimate resolution is unsurprisingly similar for stills, but what I found quite interesting, Thomas, you may, and everyone else who's got a Mark II, you may have noticed this if you take the same picture with them both and compare them side by side. I really noticed the processing style is very different on the Mark III. It's punchier, it's a bit sharper, the contrast is a bit higher, not always in a good way. Sometimes you might want to tone it down a bit if you like the kind of softer look of the Mark II, but if you like your images really biting out of the camera, then the Mark III is looking really good. The movie mode's really impressive on it, though. I mean, the reason they chose 22 point whatever megapixels for this is that it's perfectly divisible widthways by 1920, which means scaling for HD video is very easy for this camera, whereas it wasn't for the Mark II. It was, after all, almost an afterthought on the Mark II. So it doesn't suffer from wire rate anywhere near as much. I mean, in fact, I've been trying to trip this camera up all week, and so far the video looks fantastic on it. But, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, the handling on it is just, it feels like a completely different camera to me in your hands. It might look different, it might look similar, but once you pick it up, it feels very much like the 7D. It's incredibly solid, and it feels really confident. Well, what do you guys think?
Well, I'll tell you what I like. I like a couple of things. The first thing, the autofocus on it, the 61-point autofocus is so much better than the old autofocus on the Mark II. So I love that to start. The ISO, geez, what a dream. To be able to shoot at much higher ISOs. I was shooting at 8,000 this past weekend, and the photos look great. So those are my probably two favorite features. I took it to the Colors Festival and got chalk all over it, and it cleaned up okay, did okay. I love a lot of little things, like this little lock right up here. Mm-hmm. You know, when you put it in a mode, it's locked. You got to push down the button to move it. I love it.
You know what, Thomas? I had one guy complain to me about that. He said, "Curse you, Canon, for putting that lock on. Since I had my accident with that chainsaw, I didn't really want to pursue that any further." But apparently, following that accident, he finds those controls pretty hard.
That's great. Everybody I spoke to about that was so happy. Mm-hmm. That lock was there.
I love it. I love it. I move that thing all the
there.
time on my Mark II.
I keep forgetting it's there.
I like the menu, but I just like the placement of the buttons. I like the menu button up here better than before when it was down here.
I don't like that the magnify button's moved. Why did they do that? I was still going to the top right corner for the magnify.
Yeah.
I hate that they've moved it.
Yeah.
See, I like it, but I didn't use the magnify that much.
You can change the, you can go to the custom controls, I'm sure you know this, Gordon, and you change the center button, at least on the set button. You can change that to be the magnifying, which I actually think I did with mine.
So I put...
Did you all find... Sorry, Thomas. Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say I put over 10,000 frames on it this last weekend in Utah.
Oh, Jesus.
Break it in slightly.
Yeah, I broke it in hard, and I was just so impressed, particularly with the autofocus, with the way it handled. It handled like a champ, and I was also impressed that it went through the Colors Festival, which is about as rough as you can get with a camera, flawlessly. And I would like to say a shout-out to, again, the good folks at Pictureline, because I had an order in with Adorama and B&H of pre-order for both of those, and I didn't think I was going to get one, and then Pictureline shows up right when I was headed to Utah, and says, come on in, we got one for you. So I got it on Wednesday.
They're awesome. I got mine from Pictureline as well. They just shipped it to me. It was sitting, my boyfriend lives down in Portland, so it was sitting and waiting for me in Portland for like 3 or 4 days until I finally was able to get home and get to it. But it's just, it's all right. I just want to mention a few of my favorite features about it. Well, first of all, I have had the 7D and the 60D, so it's like they took, and the Mark II. So I've had these 3 cameras. It's like they took all the best elements from all these 3 cameras and put them together, including the lock button at the top, the on and off button on the top right instead of being on the bottom, or top left instead of being on the bottom right. And another thing that I just actually discovered today was, and I have to credit this to my friend Rich Legg, he called me up and he's like, hey, I have to tell you this really awesome feature about the Mark III you may not know of. And it's such a small thing, but for me it's always the little things when it comes to, doing the small things with your cameras. Let's say you focus and you don't use a center point focus and you use like something on the far right or in the third line, you can set it so that way when you zoom in, it'll automatically zoom in to that point and not to the center and then have to toggle over to the right or to the left or wherever you want to check for focus.
That's
so
cool.
My Fuji X100 did that, and I'm like, why doesn't I want my other cameras to do this? Because it's granted it takes a second or two to actually scroll over to it, but it makes it a lot easier when you're using autofocus. A lot of other little things about it. I won't get into all the details, but unless that's what the point is. But I think it's great. I haven't had a chance to really go out and actually use it for real. I've just opened it, took it out of the box like yesterday. But
did any of you find the shutter release really sensitive when you first picked it up? That you went for a half press and you were like, whoa, I've just taken a burst of pictures. I found it really light, really, really light. But you get used to it really quick. But when I first picked it up, I was like, wow, this is unbelievable.
I just remapped I'm going to try and do back button focusing. So where you take the AF on button, for those who don't know, and use back button focusing, and my shutter button is now my exposure meter, or my exposure lock, plus obviously the shutter. So I'm going to try and give that a try. But I know what you're saying, Gordon. I think I experienced that exact same thing. So.
Thomas, you've got the 8 to 15 millimeter, which of course provides the circular fisheye on full frame bodies. But on your old Mark II, because the viewfinder only had 98% coverage, it was slightly cropped. On the pictures, you got the full circle, but in the viewfinder, it was slightly cropped. Now you've got 100% on the Mark III. You can see that whole circle. Does that please you?
Yeah, I mean, I like it, of course, being able to see all of it instead of the 98%, but that wasn't such a big deal to me. I mean, 98% was enough. For me, the biggest things were the high ISO performance, the autofocus. I haven't used the 2 card slots. There's room for a SD and a CF card both in there now, so you can see. Which is not great for someone. I wouldn't really use that, but like a wedding shooter or somebody where you cannot lose those photos, I could see where that'd be a great feature. I was impressed with the weatherproofing. Feels sturdier. Just the camera in general feels sturdier to me.
Definitely.
And in looking at, I was going to show you just a couple of pictures here real quick. This was
I love that one.
Yeah, that was Chris Chabot's mark.
Chabot's camera.
Yeah, so he brought his to the Colors Festival, and so we really put it through a rough workout there. I mean, there was chalk flying everywhere constantly for hours and hours and hours. Here's a photo of me at the Colors Festival holding mine. So you can see it's just got chalk everywhere, all over it. And people were throwing all of this, and I thought it handled like a champ. And so far I haven't noticed any sensor dust or anything, but as soon as I do, I'll be bitching about it. I do like so far everything I've seen about it. It's been an absolute champ. Gordon, Mike, first of all, Mike, what do you think about it? You've been shooting it.
Well, I was going to say, I actually don't like the little lock on the mode dial. Like, I keep forgetting it's there, and I keep going to change it, and I'm like, damn it. So I'm just gotten so used to the way it was. One thing I do like is, with your right hand, you can now hit the depth of field preview button with, like, your ring finger, which before was on the other side of the lens. So now just by... Yeah. When you have your hand on the shutter, boom, you can check out that depth of field preview and you're good to go. I think that's really awesome. And I usually, coming from the Mark II, it was much slower, like 3.9 frames a second. And so like if you were in burst mode, you could control it. It's taken me a while to get used to this camera shoots much faster. Being able to control that. Yeah, first time I hit it, it was like boom, boom, boom. I was like, whoa, okay. And just trying to compensate for that now, so.
You know what, the other thing I'd find, too, is even in burst mode on the 5D Mark II, if you went at it long enough, eventually it would slow down because the card could only write so fast, and the camera and the card together.
Yep.
And it seems like this thing can just go forever on burst mode.
Yeah, I think this camera is actually like UDMA whatever compliant to handle the higher speed CF cards and take advantage of it. I don't think the Mark II is able to do that.
That's true, but the thing you have to watch out for is that it's not supporting the extra speed of UHS Class 1 SD cards, as far as I understand. And the important thing with that is not to just take those things for granted. The important thing is to, as a tester, or for me, is to then test it and to see whether that is the case, because sometimes they say one thing and in reality it's something else. Now, Nikon are stating support for UDMA CF cards and UHS Class 1 SD cards. For anyone who's thinking, what are all these letters about? This is boring as hell. It's basically cards that can read and write faster, but the camera needs to know about them. If the camera doesn't know about them, it just reads and writes at normal speed. And as I understand it, the 5D Mark III can exploit the faster CF cards, but not the faster SD cards. And where that gets interesting is when you're doing redundancy, where you're shooting to both cards at the same time, and where the slower card could slow down the faster card. Good. Won't affect many people, but that's the kind of really anarchy geeky detail that I really get off on when I've not been out for a bit.
Well, plus, if you think they'd make that second slot, they want them to keep up with one another if they're going to offer it.
Well, you have to buy a 5D Mark IV next, right?
Yeah, that's it. Hey, have any of you used the touch controls for movies yet? They're really nice.
I tried, but I couldn't figure it out.
Nicole, you know, it had me fooled for ages as well. You need to fire up the Q menu first. It won't be active until you do that. It's really annoying. So you go into the movie mode. First of all, you need to enable the silent controls in the movie menu, which of course only comes up when it's in the movie mode. And then with it enabled, you still can't do it. What you've got to do is press the Q button, which kind of superimposes the controls on the screen, and then you can just tap. Now, as I thought, I was led to believe you could actually do this with your finger. You can't do that. What you're doing is just tapping up, left, up, right, down, and left. And you can use it to go between the different options and adjust the audio levels and adjust the aperture while you're filming. Unfortunately, you're still tapping, so you could hear that, and you could nudge it a bit. I was nudging it a bit. I mean, you're not pushing.
You have to nudge it, so you have to kind of...
You just kind of touch it, but you need to have the Q menu enabled, and then you'll see that you can adjust some of those settings.
Hit like the quick... This button?
Yes, that's right. But you need to... Did you first enable the silent controls in the menu?
I'll worry about it later.
When you were testing this, Gordon, did you find that you needed a boom mic for it, or did that not help counterbalance some of the noise in the background?
I've not tested the audio side of it yet, Cynthia. Okay. I'm only a week into my testing. These things normally take me about 3 to 4 weeks to complete.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, for audio, I mean, the built-in mics are gonna suck. The nice thing about it though is that you've got the headphone jack now, so you can actually monitor the audio levels. That you can also adjust the audio levels. You can monitor them on screen as well, but you can also adjust them silently on screen as well. That's really nice.
Okay, I gotta figure it out now. This is pretty cool.
Now
it's better than turning that big clicky wheel, isn't it?
Can you see how it's like? Here, I'll point it right at me, and I'm just tapping, and it's moving. I think I've got. Is it moving the?
It is.
Exposure compensation.
Yeah.
And then I tap up, and I can change the aperture.
That's pretty neat, isn't it?
So yeah.
That's cool.
That's cool. Now, as far as the shutter sound goes, what do you guys think of that? Do you like it? The new shutter sound?
I love it.
I love
That was
it.
the first thing. I was like, beautiful.
You know, I was just at Photoshop World this last weekend, and I picked up the camera while I was there, and everyone who picked it up said, you know, it feels like a 1 series without the grip on the bottom. It just has that heft, and it feels like sturdy, the way some of the 1 series does. So
It does, doesn't it?
yeah,
It's just
What about the silent mode? I quite like that.
Well, speaking of the 5D Mark III, there is another camera that's come out here recently, and we all heard Trey Ratcliffe say he would never buy another DSLR.
What a hypocrite! What a hypocrite!
Right? Right, Jim? And he found some wiggle room in there somehow. Some lame justification, if you ask me, that because he could sell his other camera for more money. It's not like he's actually technically buying a new digital SLR, but...
I thought I saw his hangout the other day, and it was called Trey Ratcliffe Changes His Mind Like a Woman, or something like that.
Yeah. He blames it on his feminine side, Lotus.
I know.
I was like, should I be offended?
I mean, the softer side of Trey.
Yeah.
So,
Trey, we love you. Just so you know.
of course.
I mean, to be fair, it's the right camera for him. And I'm sure I've probably said this to him before as well. When you look at the pictures he takes, the lenses that he uses, and the workflow that he uses, it's the right camera for him. The only way that I would recommend for him to go beyond that would be to medium format. Because he takes high-res landscape pictures on a tripod. So that's the perfect kind of camera. The mirrorless ones aren't there yet for the kind of pictures he takes in terms of sheer resolution and sheer quality. He does a lot with things like the 14-24, that Nikkor lens, which is an awesome lens. And, it's all set up for him. It's definitely the right camera for him to buy. But, yes, he is an unbelievable hypocrite for going for that. And I have berated and will continue to do so.
Well, what about the D800? I'm not a Nikon guy. Gordon, I mean, what do you think? Do you really need all that, all those megapixels?
Well, ask me after the weekend when I've had a chance to really compare it side by side. I mean, in terms of numbers, it looks interesting. I mean, what you'd expect is that it's going to out-resolve the Mark III by a bit, and the Mark III should have slightly lower noise at really high ISOs. That's what I'm ultimately expecting. I think what it's really going to come down to is, native lens selection. Things like if you do want that 14-24 2.8, yeah, you can put it on a Canon with an adapter, but you lose autofocus and metering and stuff. So it'll come down to native lens selection. Features like Nikon do have support for UHS Class 1 SD cards. Little things like that that add up to maybe being a deal breaker for someone, and over another body. I think the really interesting thing is that, I mean, I'm a huge believer in mirrorless CSC. This week I'm calling them CSCs, compact system cameras. Next week I'll call them something else. I don't know what to call these things. I love them, but when I picked up this, I was actually testing it against the Sony NEX7. I've got some interesting results compared to that I can show you every weekend as well. I mean, that camera is so much smaller and lighter than this. But this, when you pick it up, is something, it's a beautiful thing. And the D800 is also a beautiful thing. When you pick them up, they are just beautifully crafted machines that fit beautifully in your hands and feel right and work really, really well. I'm going away on a big trip soon, and I'm not taking a camera like this. I'm going to be taking a Micro Four Thirds camera with some really nice lenses, simply because in the same space and weight as this, I can get a camera and 3 or 4 lenses and still have size and space to spare. This ultimately will take slightly better quality pictures, but for what I'm after, the other camera will be absolutely fine, and I will really explore that size and weight because I'm traveling wide. But you know, these are, even though they're like DSLRs and they're, you know, technologically dinosaurs, to be honest, there's something still really appealing about them. I mean, you know, they just feel right in your hands. I mean, you know, everyone here, you know, I'm expecting most people here are DSLR owners and users, right? Does anyone using mirrorless cameras or anything else? Why do we continue using these? Why are you all using them? You know, I mean, we're all having to go at Trey for not following up, but what about you lot? You know, are you making the move?
Because we like that big fat format where we get that big fat viewfinder, Gordon.
The viewfinder is lovely. I mean, there is that.
Yeah.
Compensating. That's my story. Just compensating.
You know, Gordon, for me personally, it comes down to the lenses.
Yeah.
I love Canon's lineup of lenses, and they've got, you know, an exceptional group of lenses that I've grown to love, particularly things like the 135, and so, you know, it's just hard to get away from that.
And especially, and that's the draw of full frame, is that Canon still continue to have this kind of segregation with the crop frame models where they don't have, yeah, you can put any lens, you can put any lens on a crop frame body, but none of them are wide. You don't have like, you don't have any really wide L lenses for it. Sure, there's the 8-50, and that's an exception, but as soon as you put like a 16-35 or 17-40 on a crop body, it's a lot less exciting. Sure, there are lenses like the 10-22, which is a great lens, but why not make an L version of that lens? Why not have those nice smooth focusing and zoom rings, the weather sealing, you know what I mean? But instead you get this lens that's optically great, but mechanically it just feels a bit cheap. Unfortunately, it's not cheap in terms of real money.
Does Canon make any EFS L lenses?
What's that?
I don't think Canon, do they make any EFS?
No, they don't, and I wish they did. And they would say, hey, you can put a 70-200L on a crop body. It's like, yeah, that's fine. I'm not worried about this. It's the wide ones I'm worried about. Why don't they do an L version of the 10-22 and of the 15-85? People would buy it. That would be great.
The 14L, the 14-28 is a great lens.
Mm-hmm.
The Prime.
But again, a lot less exciting on a crop body, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, it is on a crop body.
And as soon as you've got full frame, you've got a choice of not just, say, 124. You've got loads of 24s and 28s and 35s. You've got cheap ones, expensive ones, fast ones, slow ones, medium ones. There's just so much choice when you go full frame, and that is still why these full frame bodies are still very compelling. As you say, it's purely about access to those different lenses.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is for me. It's those lenses. I'm in love with those lenses, and I've got so many of them that I've collected, those nice L-series lenses. And I just, you know, I don't know, you know, with a lot of the mirrorless cameras, I just don't see the lineup of lenses that I do with Canon.
Yeah, definitely.
So now, how much is the D800 going for?
It's just gone up in the UK. I don't know if you're following that story.
It's three.
It's three?
Yeah.
So it's less than the 5D Mark III.
Oh,
yeah, $500.
$500 left. Do you think that makes a difference?
Do you think it makes a difference?
Well, people aren't going to switch from Canon to Nikon just because of a $500 camera body.
Yeah, I don't see anybody actually switching off from my personal standpoint. I mean, I started with Nikon because I already had access to all these lenses, but I don't think it would have mattered for me starting out from scratch. I would have bought whatever happened to be on sale and convenient at that particular time because I was buying consumer at the time. I stepped up to a prosumer, but I'm still not using full frame. Now, I had a chance to use a 700 last weekend, and I went, oh, okay, now I know why people like bigger toys, better toys. The person who gave it to me had to pry it out of my hands. And I went, I'm sorry, I'll give it back, I promise. Could I keep it for a little longer? And you're right, it has everything to do with, after having experienced full frame and having lenses on it that actually I could take advantage of the lens. And I think you're right, Thomas. You get used to a set of lenses, and Gordon's right as well. You get used to the set of lenses, and you know what they'll do, and then you go into a new body that takes advantage of it even more. And it's hard. I can't imagine ever changing back.
Yeah. You know, there's also something to be said for the familiarity of knowing a system, too, as a photographer. Not that you can't learn another system, and not that you can't go from Canon to Nikon and back, but it's kind of like, you know, similar with whether it's Lightroom and Aperture or whatever. I mean, you learn something, and there's a learning cost.
But I think Cynthia's missing the point, which is that once Gordon's done his test of the D800, those of us who shoot Nikon are going to be able to gloat once again that we get more camera for $500 less.
Well,
it's got to be. It's a factor, isn't it, Doug? It's a factor. I mean, $500 and 50%, $500 cheaper and 50% more megapixels. That's got to be a bargain in the world, right?
I have not held an 800 or a 5D Mark III, but I'm reading as much as I can and talking to people, and Nicole and I were talking about this yesterday. In fact, I think for Nikon people, in the D800, I think we've got more camera than we expected for less money. And if anything, I think in the Canon world, people say, I maybe got a little less than I expected for more money. Now, that's just, of course, Cynthia and I are up against a whole lot of Canon people. But I think, I think the fact is that we were talking yesterday about the DxO tests, which is obviously just sensor. It's not testing anything else but the sensor in the camera. But the D800 is blowing away everything, and I'd be really surprised if the Mark III comes in at that level. I think,
I mean, I was actually contemplating switching to Nikon after I saw the D800, because most of my stuff is landscapes, or I shoot some stuff in the studio that we set up. So going that stuff, I actually was really kind of lusting over the 36 megapixel, but I just didn't feel like changing systems out. I have a pretty nice set of lenses for Canon, and I just didn't want to go through the overhead.
No, I mean, the bodies come and go. Lenses are forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing.
And they've got such good after-sales value as well. I mean, you sell a body, and it's you're looking to get half the price for it a year later. But lenses, knock it 20% off, and you easily sell it.
I buy almost all my gear used. I buy and sell used all the time, and my lenses pretty much hold their value year after year.
Yeah, I actually think of all the lenses that I've actually bought new and even sold, I actually think I made a profit on selling all of them, which I can't actually say for any stocks or equities I ever purchased. So.
Well, maybe this is the answer. We should all be trading in cameras, camera lenses, rather not bodies.
Now, Gordon, one of the things I do want to find out, after you have a chance to get your hands on the 800 and you have a chance to do video on both, because I have a very large interest in video, and I don't think anybody else here uses it probably as much. But as a broadcaster, I want to be able to take one camera to do everything.
That's where I'd expect the Canon to do better, because they have the heritage of the Mark II.
Yeah, absolutely. They have had a long-standing history of having better video. So I'm going to be curious to see if Nikon actually did more than what I'm expecting with the video.
My gut feeling is that, as Doug said, I think the Mark III is probably going to outperform it in terms of, I mean, what Nikon have done. And I say Nikon because I'm from England. What Nikon have done is they've designed a sensor that's great for stills.
Right.
It's a massive resolution, and it also does video. What Canon have done is they've gone, well, everyone was happy with the stills on the Mark II, so we're not going to increase it that much. What we're going to do is adapt it so that it becomes even better for video. Right. Without compromising the stills in terms of resolutions. That's why they increased it a little bit so that the scaling would work really well for video. The Nikon one is not divisible perfectly by any video resolution, so that's got to count against it unless they've got some amazing processing going on behind the scenes. I won't know until I've done it.
Right.
But it's looking good for the Mark III in terms of video. But the sheer number of pixels could swing it on the D800 if you want to make massive prints and you can't afford to go to medium format. But here's a trick: 1 picture, 2 pictures, 42 megapixel image.
There you go.
Or the 44 meg.
I've been asked by a lot of filmmakers, because a lot of them today take their still shots with a Canon because it has the ability to do a side video format for them, and they can do one-off movies, and they can do sidebars, and they can test things as they're going along and filming. But a number of them came up to me when I was at the latest, the San Jose CineQuest, and they were asking me what I thought about Nikon's video, because they knew that I was shooting a little bit of video at the time. But that's why I have a curiosity, because I've been asked to look at possibly going on a couple of these independent film as they're making them, and I only want to take one camera. I'm kind of into the one body, one camera, maybe two lenses, and trying to figure out what would you take to carry as little as possible, because where you're going is not necessarily adaptable for everything else.
Well, I was really stunned on the video of the Mark III compared to the Mark II. There's a bar in Queenstown called Duck's Deluxe that locals will know about, and it's got this kind of red painted background. Red is very difficult to record in low light at high ISO. You get a lot of noise. And I filmed this. Well, first of all, I've got, if you go to the sample images at cameralabs.com, I've got this scene of this bar, every ISO setting all the way up to 102.
Yeah, I saw that. It was cool.
And it's like, even as Thomas was saying, at 6400, you're looking for the noise. It's still really good. You know, 12800, you're thinking, well, but then you think, that's 12,800 ISO. You know, I mean, this thing is so clean at high ISOs, and it applies to video as well. And I was filming video at, say, 6400.
Yeah.
The same scene with the Mark III, and it looked okay, and I thought, fine, let's see what the Mark II did. And I couldn't believe it, and those movie samples are there to download in my preview. You can look at them right now. Have a look at that wall behind, you know, on the back of this bar. It's dancing. It's just going, all the noise on the red channel. It's horrendous, and it's just not there at all on the Mark III. And that, you know, they've improved it. And I think that's the really interesting thing about it. When these cameras first came out, and we all had a look at the specifications, I was kind of trying to play devil's advocate by saying, you know, maybe the downside to the Mark III is that there's no key selling point. You know, there's no single headline feature like 36 megapixels or a million point AF or something like that. But in fact, having used it now for a week, its key selling point is that it's just a really nice camera. You know, it takes really nice pictures and films really nice video, and you know, ultimately that, and it feels nice in your hands, and you can't really ask for more than that. It's nice. That's my one-word review.
The one-word review. It's nice.
Nice.
It's nice.
It's nice. We'll quote you on that, Gordon. Well, it's fun to talk about these cameras, but we've got a few other stories tonight, so we do need to move along. This weekend, both Lotus and myself were in Utah, right, Lotus?
Yes. It's awesome.
The one and only Jarvie walk.
Jarvie.
Scott Jarvie is in the chat room tonight, so we had a great time. I just counted a few seconds ago my number of frames that I took, which was over 12,000 actually. So 12,843 frames I took.
I got to tell you, those of us who couldn't make it, we are so tired of colored chalk pictures. I can't.
Turn your computer off and come back to G+ in a couple weeks, dude.
Oh man, they're still coming out full speed, aren't they?
I've only.
Thomas, I actually described you as the whirling dervish on Mark's post today, and you are 12,000 shots, yeah.
Yeah, we got crazy, but you know, we had a lot of really great opportunities. Jesse Stay got us up on top of the LDS building, which is the tallest building in Salt Lake City, to shoot the temple at sunset. And
yeah, that was wild.
The Jarvie got us into the Symphony Hall. We got to shoot the empty Symphony Hall with all those seats and do all kinds of stuff. Lotus, what were some of the highlights for you?
The Colors Festival for me was the biggest thing. I mean, I loved the things that you just described too, and all the landscapes, because there's beauty all around out there. So I've got a lot of really great mountain shots and some sunrises, but I think the Colors Festival itself was a big deal for me. So much that, you know, I wanted to go to both days of it and get all those portraits, as many as I could, of those faces, those joyous colored faces.
Yeah, I think they are going to be dominating Google Plus for months in the future, though. I think you're right.
Do you think we should show? Devin Graham made a really great video to kind of show what the festival is like.
You want to show it? You want to fire it up?
Yeah, I've got it up here. Let me share my screen.
This was a photographer's paradise shooting this thing, all the color and everything.
Is Nicole being mauled by some animal?
Yes, I am.
A visitor.
I'm getting mauled by my cat. So.
Oh, good cat. Good cat.
So this is a colors festival. Lotus, fire this up.
I'm trying. It's taken a second to respond. It looks like it's not showing. I just did full screen on it, and it's not showing. Do you see full screen?
No, you can't do full screen on Hangouts.
Just do Command+ and zoom in if you're on a Mac.
Okay.
It's probably just slow too.
Not working. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
It's probably just slow because you're on dial-up.
That joke again.
Ow.
Wow.
Okay, it's not. I hit play. It's not doing anything. Don't,
Damn
you know,
Google.
get some more jokes.
Hit
So,
pause.
so
and
what
input.
happens? A lot of people just throw a load of chalk around, and is it how long does the throwing take?
Here we
How
go.
long
There
does
you
it go
go.
on for?
Oh, that's awesome.
Whoa.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that chalk was great. They just threw that all over the place.
Did they time it? Was it synced every single time they threw it?
For the major ones, yeah, they did like every couple hours, like a chalk throw.
So the organizers throw the chalk, not you guys.
Oh no, everybody, whoever wants to throw it, throws it.
Okay.
You know, and basically it's a bunch of college kids for the most part out there.
Just like India, except where everyone has perfect white teeth.
But it was a blast. I had the best time and so many photographic opportunities.
I just picture after this is over coming home and blowing your nose and having all sorts of colors come out.
Rainbow. It's a rainbow.
Yeah, I noticed some purple this morning myself.
Now, did the other photographers tape up their, like, or put any kind of, like, rain protection gear on their cameras?
Oh yeah.
That's just so cool looking.
You know, the video captures it in a way that none of the stills have done so far, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have to agree. You don't really see how it happens except in those frames. That's a big difference.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we had a great time, so that was that. Any other highlights for you, Lotus?
No, that was it. You can also see a really great gallery of photos on Jarvie Digital. I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay.
Scott's got a really good comprehensive overview.
Okay, so the people in the video chat room are saying it's stuck on mic. I'm not sure why. The video is stuck on mic, so that some people couldn't see the video, so I don't know. Let me try putting it on mic and putting it off mic.
Oh yeah, poor
It's got the
Sam.
priority Google account.
She
Yeah.
dropped her wallet at the beach and had to go back for it in the dark. She's just mentioning that in the chat. She said that was a high point for her, not.
Ah, okay.
So that was
So
bad.
I guess the Hangout is stuck on mic all the time.
Okay, how about this? I'll disconnect and I'll reconnect and we'll see if that fixes
Yeah,
it.
let's see what that does. Hop out and then hop back in.
Be right back.
It
Yeah, I
says
heard
it's stuck,
there were
stuck on
some-
mic for the last 20 minutes.
There must be some weird video problems because I was told that when I first joined, that nobody could see my video, so I...
Are people seeing Mike, when they saw Mike, was Mike frozen or was he moving at least?
Is it still stuck on mic? People in the chat room, can you still see Mike or
What do
does
you guys
somebody
see
else
now?
know? Oh, now
Now
I
they
see
see
Doug.
Doug.
Okay.
Doug.
All right, it's switching.
Now it's moving.
I
Mike,
like-
Good.
Mike
just
solved the
said?
problem.
You know that plugin
Yeah,
that
it's
put the
not like
antlers
that.
on your head?
I'm not
You know that
jumping.
option
Now
that
I'm
puts
jumping.
you know the app that puts the antlers on your head and the beard and everything? I want the one that puts the live cat like the old head. It looks amazing.
So now it's stuck on
Yeah.
Doug, they're saying.
Oh, good. Now it's Revenge of the Nikons.
Okay. Yeah, another weird Hangout issue tonight, but we'll have to do the best we can around it.
I must have had too much to drink because Sam now sees dough.
That means he's looking at me.
So we did have some. I did also want to share some inspiring photographs this week.
Yeah.
Let me pull those up here. These
Maybe
are all.
Doug might have to pull them up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, huh?
I guess if I log off too, we'll have nobody left.
Well, I wonder. Let's see if I put it on myself and screen share. People in the chat room can't see the video. Can't see the screen.
Why me? I don't even shoot Canon.
Huh. Well, that's interesting.
Should
Greg,
I go
you
on?
want to try? You want to try hopping out and hopping back in?
I'll do that. I'll be back. Bye.
All right.
See you
Is
in a
Mike
minute.
not coming back?
Okay. So,
Like Survivor.
what about now? Can you guys see now?
Yeah.
Can you see
I
this
think it was
photo,
always working for us, wasn't it?
Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So who do you guys see in the chat room? Who do you guys see?
Thomas.
Me. But you don't see my screen share.
Yes.
Yes, they do. Okay. So, all right. Now it's stuck on me. But all right. Well, good. So we can see the screen share. So these are a couple pictures. This is one of Trey's pictures. It got a boatload of plus ones, over 1,000. So this is a Japanese something or other garden.
It looks Chinese. It's interesting.
Is it Chinese?
I think it's in Kyoto.
Yeah, it looks Japanese.
It's Japanese.
Yeah, I think it is. Let's see what Trey says. It's Midnight Adventure in the Japanese Cemetery. So that's what we had there. That was one picture we wanted to share. Mike Shaw had a picture here that got 1,845 plus ones. Can you believe it? I don't think I've ever had a photo get 1,845.
It is 1.8 times better than Trey's picture. Almost exactly.
Well, anyway, so this is, Take Me Home wallpaper. Take Me Home Country Roads.
That reminds me of back home.
It's beautiful. So another one from Mike Shaw. And then the third one I was going to show is Marcus Guerra, another 1,000-plus photo this week. Beautiful shot. Mark was at the Colors Festival. He was at the Jarvie Walk. But I am just continually impressed with the quality of work that photographers on Google Plus are putting up. This is just a beautiful, beautiful shot.
Oh yeah, Thomas, there's one in our chat right here. You should also screen share.
Just Another Dream.
There's a link to it.
There's another one here, Lotus.
Right here in the video chat.
Yeah, I gotta get the chat on. There we go. Okay, from Chris Lazary. Let's take a look at this one. Oh wow, that is spectacular, isn't it?
Yeah, Nicole. Good call, Nicole.
Yeah. Is that one I don't see it on the screen share.
Yeah, it's not on the screen share.
Yeah, I don't see it yet.
Yeah,
there
it's gonna
Here we
take a
go.
second.
Yeah, this one's epic.
Death Valley Milky Way shot. So here we go. Look at that. Spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And that one only had 235 plus ones, and it's the best one. No, they were all very good.
Wild card.
Yeah. So, hopefully, is the video working now, guys, in the room? Chat room? Can you see everybody?
Is it switching back and forth at least? They're going to tell us right now. Yes.
Can you see Doug?
All right. Seems to be.
It's stuck on me.
Oh, well. No, it's working for some of them at least, so we're okay.
Oh, it is working for some of them. Okay, well, they see me. Well, jeez.
I thought it was.
Okay, well, we'll keep moving on. At this point, I would like to recognize one of our wonderful sponsors, Drobo. Drobo, for those of you that don't have a Drobo yet, time to get a Drobo. We love them. They are a great backup solution, and you can just stick the hard drives in. Something falls apart, hard drive breaks, swap it out, put a brand new one in, and you're able to be right back on your feet running again. So
Because it's going to warn you before you actually lose your data, right?
It does. Well, actually, if a drive is having trouble, you get notified that a drive is having trouble, but if it fails, it turns red. But fear not if you get a red drive, because it's just as simple as pushing a button, popping it out, and putting a new one in.
And when is your drive going to fail?
That is the eternal mystery, Lotus. That is the eternal mystery.
But sometimes it doesn't happen, right?
No, every drive will fail eventually.
Yeah, it will.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
So
one of the few things
guys.
that's definite. You know,
Yes.
they say taxes and death. Well, drive failure is one of those other definites. It will happen.
Yes. So, Drobo, we appreciate Drobo, one of our great sponsors tonight. Which brings us to our next story. When my 5D Mark III first came out, after night 1 in Utah, I put all my images into Lightroom, and I was very disappointed when I found out that Lightroom could not read my images. What, Adobe Lightroom cannot read images from a Canon 5D Mark III?
Which cuss words did you say?
I did a little rant on Twitter, and quickly, within a few minutes, I was told that, well, here's a beta DNG converter that you can use to convert them to DNG to use it. But I was still not angry, but put off with Adobe, because surely they get a pre-production 5D Mark III, don't they, Gordon?
They should do, but you know, it's not just Lightroom that there's been issues with RAW. There's been some other journalists reporting some issues with the processing from Canon's own Digital Photo Professional program, which is actually what I use. When I'm testing the cameras, I always use the supplied software. So I would normally use DPP to process the Canon images, but they've been coming up a bit soft. So I'm waiting for that and the Lightroom thing to sort out before I do any real kind of RAW analysis. So it's JPEGs all the way for me at the moment.
The good news is the Canon Lightroom problem is now officially sorted out. Right, Lotus?
In beta, though, right? It's not final. It's release candidate. It's not
correct.
final.
The release candidate, correct. The release
Yeah.
candidate.
Yeah,
So-
but it enables you to bring the files in. I actually had a bunch because Michael Bonacore let me shoot with his new camera, and so I hadn't looked at any of those photos. They were just sitting on my computer. I hadn't looked at any of them until today when I did the Lightroom update.
What a nice guy.
Yeah, he's nice.
He didn't let you keep the camera, though, right?
No, I couldn't run fast enough. He did track me down.
Yes. But, well, it is nice, though, that now with the Adobe 4.1 release candidate, which, did it come out today?
What's today?
Yeah, I think so.
Today. So everybody, quick, go download it. And,
I think it's going to be a release probably within a week.
yeah, I would suspect they'd do it pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
but
their final candidate is ready. I already got a notice saying that I could go ahead and download. So.
I mean, I just think they should have it together. I mean, is it really that hard? I mean, they ought to know. I mean, when that camera comes out, a popular camera, whether it's the Mark III or the D800, it ought to be ready from day one.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I mean, I can understand if it's some small little camera from someplace, but a Mark III, really? Adobe can't support that? But now they do, so.
Well, the majority of the population don't have their Mark IIIs yet, or they're just now getting them. You know, we just got ours like a week ago, so.
Except for those people that are connected with the good folks at Pictureline.
Right.
Who we love. Thank you, and thank you, Nicole and Jarvie and Rich Leg, who also got one, who like all kind of jumped me at once, I think, on Monday, saying, hey, Pictureline.
Well, you know, we were in a hangout. I can't remember. I think it was Trey's hangout, and I was trying to say Pictureline. It just kind of got, I think, like pushed under the rug with other people talking. But I was like, I'll just send him an email.
And now Suzanne, I see Suzanne Haggerty's in the chat room. Suzanne, did you get your 5D Mark III from Pictureline as well?
And, you know, I wonder, Thomas, if the support for the 5D Mark III had been in Lightroom before you got the camera, would you have complained to Canon that they didn't ship the camera soon enough?
Yes. Yes. No, I'm kidding. I would have been perfectly happy. But, Suzanne got hers from Pictureline as well. So it seems like Pictureline is the hip new place to buy your camera.
Maybe they need to be
I need to talk to them about advertising, clearly.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it is nice how Pictureline reached out to everybody. I know Trey was looking for a D800. I don't know if he's got it yet. And I had sent Jacob a note on Facebook for Pictureline saying, "Hey, hook a brother up."
Yeah.
So
Their customer support is just awesome. They're just, they're a local Utah company. They have everything online as well. But you give them a call, and they're, you don't get like a service board, like a line of people just answering phones. You actually get the manager of the store, or one of the people that actually works there. So they're awesome.
It was kind of cool that they happened to be located in Utah right when I needed a 5D Mark III, and that was in Utah.
It was magical.
That was very convenient. So
it was meant to be, Thomas. It was meant to be.
It was. So speaking of, and they're not even a sponsor, and look at all the love they're getting.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Exactly. Hey, Lotus, we need to talk to them.
Yeah, right.
We should. They'd be a great sponsor. But we do have another sponsor, and those are the good folks at SmugMug.
Woo!
Yay.
Did you guys see Camera Awesome? I saw on TechCrunch this week 4 million downloads.
Yeah, amazing. Just
Holy
amazing.
cow.
Isn't that amazing?
It's worth it. It's worth downloading. It's amazing.
It's I don't have an iPhone because I'm an Android type of guy, but I borrow it on my wife's and it's great. It's the best camera phone app I've ever seen. Is anybody else using it on their camera?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Is it better than anything else you've tried?
Yeah, they're all different. I love the SmugMug app. I think it's great. It does some things different than the others. So they're just, I must have probably 8 or 9 different iPhone apps for photography now. And I was out today with a friend shooting and found another one. So it's hard to keep up. But the SmugMug one is really good.
It feels like to me that one has the most of all the best features and all the other random ones I've collected. Like the Camera Awesome is putting all of those really good options together.
Yeah.
And the last time we talked about it, they were throwing around the idea of changing the pricing.
Right, bulk pricing it.
And so, now they've got a package where you can get all of the effects all at once for $9.99.
That's a great deal. Yeah.
And if you've already purchased some of them, it'll just bill you the remainder or whatever. So it should work out just right. So if you've already been buying them, so that's cool.
That's great. That's very cool.
They were saying maybe 15, so it's even less than that. $9.99 is a really good deal for all of it.
I think it is.
Tons of effects in there.
Yeah, for the best app on the iPhone for camera apps, it's a great deal. So and it's like buying them all.
Instagram. They also have Instagram functionality now.
They do.
Yeah,
I've heard of Instagram.
The photo over to Instagram as well, which is really cool because I haven't seen another camera app that can do that.
I've heard of that Instagram.
You heard of that just a little bit?
Some of us Android users have heard it's coming.
Yeah, Instagram's great, so it's cool to integrate it there with the Camera Awesome.
It is cool. So, thank you to the good folks at SmugMug that do a lot of things well, not just Camera Awesome, which is the current super awesome thing they're doing, but is a great place to sell your pictures and host your pictures, and a lot of professional photographers use them. I've got my photos up there for sale. Lotus, I know you do too.
Yeah.
And Nicole, you've got
Jarvie.
Mine are there.
Doug's there, and the Jarvie's there. So,
I actually just got a SmugMug account.
Oh, sweet.
Nice.
Just recently. I'm going to start selling some fine art prints.
Awesome.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
They still need to
Show off
implement
your
that
site.
affiliate thing, though. They still need to do the affiliate thing so that we can all sell each other's.
Right, we were talking about that. Yeah, Gordon. Gordon recommended that when we had Don McCaskill on.
That'd be a good idea.
Good idea. Yeah.
So that is a great idea. So, anyways, we love the good folks at SmugMug. So, now we're getting to the point of the show where we talk 100% Gordon Laing.
With 1 minute remaining.
No. We've got more than a minute remaining. We're gonna keep running it. So, Gordon.
Hello.
Camera Labs. What is the history of Camera Labs? How did that start? How did that all get up and going? Give us the background of Gordon Laing.
Yeah, well, I was working on a magazine called Personal Computer World from 1991. I finished university and I didn't know what job I wanted to do. I knew I loved finding out about things. I'd got a degree in physics and I liked finding out how things worked, and I'd loved photography since being a kid. But I was trying to find some way to combine all these things. And then, believe it or not, I went to a different university's careers office, and they had this big book, and it was like, find the right job for you. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And it was like one of those old Dungeons and Dragons books where you'd open it up and it'd say, do you choose to turn left or right? If you turn right, turn to page 25. And this was along the lines of, do you like healing animals? Turn to page 85, and it would say, you're a vet. And I answered all the questions, and it said either you're very greedy, which I am, do something with food, or you're a technical magazine journalist. And I was like, blimey, I didn't even know that job existed. But as luck would have it, I was obsessed with magazines as a kid, and I decided to write to them. There were no jobs. I didn't know where they advertised jobs for these things, so I wrote to my favorite magazines, and one of them was foolish enough to write back. They were obviously at a very desperate moment, and they said, look, can you start on Monday? Literally, this was Friday night. I was living in Scotland at the time. But what I've done is I've kind of designed the application to look like a page in the magazine. It's the sort of, try and do things a bit different. And that hit a note with them. So I started working with this computer magazine, testing computers and stuff. And a couple of years later, the first digital cameras started coming out. And we were all like on the magazines. At the time, they were like computer peripherals. So we had to cover them. And we had this editorial meeting, who's going to review them? And no one wanted to do it. And I was like, wow, I love cameras. I love photography. Can I do it? Can I start reviewing them? They were like, yeah, they're all yours. We don't want anything to do with them. So I started reviewing them from the very kind of birth of digital photography in the kind of early to mid-90s. Continued working for magazines, but specializing more and more on imaging. So I started to write for photography magazines, doing reviews for them, because they kind of liked that they had some people who were writing for them who were into the creative, the artistic side, but that I was coming more from a kind of physics-computer background where I could look at the real technical side of it as well. So I started doing more and more of that, and I was seeing some websites start up and getting a lot of traffic, and I thought, this has got to be the future. And we were seeing advertising and subscriptions going down on print magazines. So I thought, I've got to get online. And then I think it was 2005, I thought, right, I'm going to launch my own photography website. So I was still working almost full-time freelancing for the tech magazines in the UK. So I launched Camera Labs and then just kind of plodded at it. And if as anyone who's kind of started their own online business knows, it takes a long time before it can possibly take over as your full-time job. You've got to have another source of income. But after about 3 years, it did take over. So I've been kind of full-time on it now for about 3 years. So the site itself is about 6 years old.
Second, guys. Oh, he's back.
Oh, he's back. Okay, good.
Okay. So the keyboards have lost their charm because they don't clicky-clicky anymore?
Yeah, they don't click in the same way that they used to. For those who were fortunate enough to miss that last part when Thomas fell asleep and pressed the off button. Yeah, I was just saying, I was lamenting keyboards not being as clicky as they used to be. And it's born from the fact that this T-shirt has got graphics on it that are a bit like an old Mac extended keyboard. So yeah, so the big tip is if you're going to start your own blog, whether it's photography review site or anything like that, make sure you've got an additional income, because unless you're doing something I wish I knew about, then it's going to take you a couple of years before it starts making any money. Gordon, you've got to have.
Gordon, how do you get all these cameras? Are they just sent to you, or do you have relationships with these people? Do you buy them?
Yeah, this is a question I get asked all the time, especially on YouTube. Everyone on YouTube thinks that I'm this eccentric millionaire who just keeps buying all these cameras and reviewing them and then just having this big pile of them. I get this constant stream of emails, people saying, hey, Gordon, can you send me one of your 1 million cameras that's in your back room? And I'm sad to say, no, I can't, because they're all on loan. They all get loaned to me as a recognized journalist, and then they get taken back from you as a recognized journalist. All companies have got PR departments that are set up to lend stuff to magazines and publications. And if you're starting off, it's very hard to get into that because, these companies receive requests all the time. So, there's people saying, I've just started a new site, can you send me stuff to review? And they're like, oh, we've had about 20 of these requests in the last 5 minutes. But luckily, because I've been working on the magazines for 15 years before I started Camera Labs, they all knew me already, so they were lending me stuff already for the magazines. And I said, look, can you lend me stuff for this other project I'm doing? And at the same time, I was also writing about it for magazines, so it's like win-win for them. So it's all on loan. So the companies will, the journalists will phone up a company and say, can you lend me this? And you'll normally get it for, maybe 2-3 weeks, and then they ask for it back. So nothing sticks around, nothing at all.
Well, that's pretty good.
I have a question though. So you get all these cameras and you get to test them, and I know, for me, like I said, I got my Mark III. I opened it up out of the box a couple days ago, but until I actually do, for me, a food photo shoot or actually get out and take it outside and do some landscape photography with it, I won't actually, maybe even 2 or 3 times outside, then I'll feel like, okay, I've really had a chance to use and get a feel for this camera. Now, I'm sure you're doing other kinds of testing, more technical stuff, but do you ever feel like you don't quite get as much time with the camera to really get a really solid, unbiased opinion about it?
When I used to work on the magazines, I think you didn't have enough time, simply because you were writing a review that was maybe 800 words long. That was 1 page in a magazine. If you're looking at a 3-page review, which is a long review for a magazine of something technical, that's still only about 2,000 words. One of my reviews, and if the amount that you'd get paid for that would only cover you for a day or 2 as a freelancer. So that's about how long you spend on it, including writing on it. So when you're reading a lot of these shorter reviews, be aware that the person writing it is probably not been using it for very long. But one of the reviews, that's the beauty of publishing your own stuff, is that you can just go mental on it. And I go maybe a bit too much the other way. And one of my typical reviews would be 25,000 words long, which is, like a quarter of a novel, sometimes with a 20-minute video demonstration as well. And when you've been testing these things day in, day out, you know exactly where to go, what things to look at, so you can start getting a good handle on it really quickly. And some of that is down to, I've got a series of pictures, the same pictures that I take with each of these cameras, under similar conditions or identical conditions that let you really get a good handle on it very, very quickly. So that's the first thing I do. I'll take all of these test shots to compare them against previous models. And then beyond that, it's about shooting the hell out of the thing, taking it to parties, taking it out, using it all of the time. And as all of you know, if you run your own businesses, it doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. You're working nights, you're working weekends, you're working 7 days a week. So when you're working on something for 3 or 4 weeks, 7 days a week, you get a pretty good idea of how it performs. And when that's the only thing you're doing, you get a good idea of it. It's not like you're only using it for a couple of hours a day, you're using it all day long.
So how many of these cameras, how many of these cameras, I mean, because, I know when I go out on photo walks and I see somebody has a brand new shiny, fill in the blank for some kind of camera gear, and you're like, oh, that's awesome, I want to buy that now. How many of these cameras do you end up buying after you play with them?
None of them, because there's absolutely no point, Nicole. I went through a phase of that where I'd fall in love with every single camera that I tested almost, because they all had something beautiful about them. And you go, wow, I really want that. But then a week later, you get a new one. And a week after that, you get another new one. A week after that, you get a new one. And you forget the old. It's like, forget about it. So you're just constantly moving on. You're constantly seeing new stuff. If you're into gear, being a gear journalist is a great job, because you get to play with so many other things that hopefully you're interested in.
You never have to marry. You never have to marry a camera. You get to play the field, basically.
Yeah, and because this is, precisely, precisely. And in fact, I've sold all my gear. I've owned so many different cameras over the years, and every brand. I've never been loyal specifically to one brand. I've owned about 6 or 7 different brands, and loved all of them again. But I've just come to the end of selling almost all my the gear that I own, because there's no point. in me owning a camera, because the pictures that I take, the people say, what camera do you use? And it's the one I'm testing right now. So if I'm going to go out tonight and take pictures of someone or something, I'll be using the Mark III, because that's what I'm testing right now. It would be foolish of me to leave this at home. You know, why would I leave? You know, I've got to test it as much as I can. So I use whatever camera I'm testing at the time. So there's no point in it.
Gordon, you're going to hate this question, but if suddenly the well dried up and you had to buy one camera and only one camera,
what would it be?
Today.
Based on what you know today. You only get one camera, and it's the only camera you're going to use for a year.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were going to say the rest of my life.
No.
Oh, yeah. That's easy. Yeah. Well,
you're going to hate me for that question.
Yeah, it's interesting you say it, because I'm kind of in that situation now, in that I've got this big round-the-world trip coming up in 2 weeks, and I have to work out what camera I'm going to take for that. And I'm going to be taking a Panasonic GX1 with 3 Leica lenses, fixed focal length lenses, because I really want the portability for that the trip, you know, what I'm doing. That's what I'll be taking with me. But if I wasn't traveling so much and carrying a backpack all the time, then, you know, something like this is still, you know, it's old-fashioned, but it's really nice. It's really nice. But then over the weekend, the D800.
That's the quote for tonight. The Mark III is old-fashioned. I love it.
Now, Gordon.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. There's an irony in it.
But in a really satisfying way, you know. I mean, that's not a bad thing. With technology, it's very easy, and I came from like the computer side of it, and you're seeing this constant development, constant new stuff, and that new things are better than old things. But that's not always true. You know, as we all know, sometimes people do get it right 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Why couldn't they have got it right then? And it's like the ergonomics, the basic idea of an SLR, the shape, the way it feels in your hand, where your eye goes, where your hand goes. They nailed that 30, 40 years ago, and, you know, it worked. They've just kind of put more electronics in it. It still doesn't mean Trey Ratcliffe can get away with what he did.
You did a good job with that question. Thank you.
Speaking of Trey Ratcliffe and not buying a DSLR, Gordon, you have been a big fan of the mirrorless cameras. First of all, can you explain to people that don't know what a mirrorless camera, what is the difference between a DSLR and mirrorless camera? And then tell us why you're so excited about that as the future of technology for cameras.
Well, the clue's in the title. The mirrorless aspect means that it doesn't have a mirror. In a DSLR, what happens is the light comes in through the lens, it bounces off a mirror, that's at this angle, goes into either another mirror or a prism here, and then out to the viewfinder. So what you see is through the lens. Leave the lens cap on, you won't see anything. Put your fingers in front of the lens, you'll see them in the viewfinder. What you see is what you get. And it works really well. And then obviously what happens when you take the picture, the mirror flips up out the way and exposes the sensor or the film. Now, there are some disadvantages to this. When the mirror flips, well, first of all, you need this mechanical mirror, which is occupying a certain amount of space.
Right.
That makes the body quite big. You've got a mechanical system that's making noise, that has potential mechanical failure. You also have a viewfinder that stops working as soon as you take the picture, or more specifically, when that sensor is being exposed. Now, when you're filming video, the sensor is being exposed all the time. So that means that the optical view, if you're using this for video, this whole top part of the camera is redundant. It didn't need to be there. You can't use the viewfinder.
Right.
You're using the screen. And that's fine to use the screen, but what if I want the stability and the privacy and the light protection from direct sunlight of composing through a viewfinder? You need an electronic viewfinder to do that with video. You can't do that with a DSLR, and these are many aspects that are solved by these mirrorless cameras. They get rid of the mirror, so they're 100% live view systems. However, because they're designed to be like that, do not think that live view on one of these is anything like live view on a mirrorless camera. The AF on something like a Panasonic GX1 and Olympus EP3 is very fast, or a Sony NEX7 or 5N. They're very fast at focusing. They can also do things that this can't do, like continuous autofocus when you're filming. That wouldn't affect you if you're a professional, you're used to pulling focus, you know, but if you're a parent, you know, and you want to film your kids running around, or you're on holiday and you haven't got a focus puller with you, then, you know, continuous AF while you're filming is an important thing. But for me also, the size is a really important thing. I know I've kind of waxed lyrically about how great I think this camera feels, but I can hardly hold this thing up at the moment. It weighs a ton. And that's kind of quite satisfying if I want to bat someone over the head with it who's, you know, trying to attack me. But if you're traveling with this thing and you've got it in a bag, you know, if you're traveling light, if you're on a holiday, now if you're doing a job, if you're on a photo job, you tolerate carrying heavy equipment with you. But if you're traveling, especially with kids, or, you know, why put yourself through it? And that's one of the things I really like about get rid of the mirror, make the camera smaller, make it lighter. You don't need this bit on the top. That weighs a ton. This is a big bit of glass in there. Sure, it's a nice viewfinder, but all of these things make mirrorless cameras, to me, very appealing. And things like if you've not picked up something like a Sony NEX7 or 5N or any of the Micro Four Thirds bodies, try them out because they're really nice. And some of them have got some super lenses
now, Gordon, the lenses, the existing lens systems with Nikon and Canon with the DSLR. Could those ever be converted to a mirrorless camera body somehow?
Well, the thing is, these lenses are designed to focus the image at a point where they expect the sensor to be, which is, you know, 4 centimeters behind the mount.
Right.
So if you got rid of the mirror, it would still have to be 4 centimeters behind the mount, the sensor, so you wouldn't have any of the size benefit. But what you could have is the benefit of, if they could adapt the autofocus system, you might be able to get things like continuous AF when you're filming video. It's also worth noting, you know, that these cameras may be great for sports because they do great focus tracking, but it's predictive. The focusing that they're doing is using a system in the viewfinder. As soon as you take that picture and that mirror flips up, that phase change AF system is no longer working. It's not doing anything. At that point, the camera is predicting where that football player is going. They're predicting it. Until it opens, until it flips down again, it can take a reading. Whereas these systems that don't have a mirror, they're tracking the whole time. They have the potential to be more accurate. There are no front or back focusing errors because you're actually focusing on the contrast of the image, not on where the system thinks everything is. So there's lots of benefits. So yeah, sorry, I didn't answer your question, Thomas. Yes, you could produce a mirrorless system with the EF or F mount, but it wouldn't have any size benefit, but it might still have a kind of AF or movie benefit.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see where they go down that road. The rumors are saying, I don't know if you follow sites like Canon Rumors and Nikon Rumors, they are saying that Canon are going to this year come out with a mirrorless interchangeable lens system. It's a rumor. Maybe it's a rumor people want to hear as opposed to one that's likely, but we'll see. But that's a big deal. But it is a big deal. The lenses, you know, you want to keep using. They've got this fantastic lens catalog that's been around for so long. And I was taking some pictures the other day with the 85mm 1.8, which is one of the cheapest, really nice lenses in the Canon catalog. I was doing some star images with it, which are, again, with the 5D Mark III, you can look at them on the sample images gallery on Camera Labs. And that's such a cracking lens. And that's about 20 years old, that lens. Maybe more. And you've got this heritage, this catalog, that even the old stuff's good on it. You know what I mean? There's that thing again, even the old stuff's good. That's my new motto.
Gordon,
so you're all skeptics, aren't you? You're going, yeah, mirrorless, but the next time your camera breaks, you're going to do what's now known in the industry as a Ratcliffe and just buy another DSLR.
Ratcliffe, I like that. Gordon,
yeah, I'm going to Ratcliffe this decision.
Yeah, you know, I personally think I will because just because of the lenses. You know, I've got this excellent collection of, I don't know, 10 Canon L series lenses, you know, and you know, I love all of them. You know, each one is as good or better than the next, and I can't imagine not being able to use these lenses.
Well, don't you? I think there's a little bit of nostalgia and, like, you know, you have the argument between the people who love their Kindle and the people who are like, no, I need to hold a real book in my hands, and there's no real logic to why other than they just want to. And I think there's probably a little bit of that, too.
I think one of the interesting things when you say about putting so-called legacy lenses on new bodies, Sony's the closest to doing that. Because what they did with their... Now, Sony are covering so many bases. They're like, we're not putting all our money in one... You know, we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We're just going to have all the baskets. I like the look of that basket. I'm going to have that one. Let's have that one as well. In fact, let's just invent a brand new basket no one's ever heard of. Come out with these SLT cameras, which are kind of like a hybrid between a mirror and a non-mirror, because it does have a mirror, but it doesn't move. But what that does, the most interesting thing about those cameras, the SLTs, in this discussion, is that they take existing Sony alpha lenses. Not that there's this huge established catalogue of Sony alpha lenses. Yeah, there's a few. It's not as much as Nikon or Canon, but they did find a way to develop this high-tech new type of camera, but that still took the old lenses. So it's not like the NEX system, which needs an adapter to use the old lenses and natively has a different lens mount. The SLTs use the old Sony A-mount lenses, and that's a really nice solution. So maybe that's what Canon and Nikon should do. They should produce something like an SLT and get around the problem that way. So you get to use the existing lenses, but with a higher tech, more modern camera. And I saw on the chat earlier someone was talking about getting the Sony A77. Awesome camera. Really nice camera. Really, I mean, the amount of technology and performance they put in a camera like that. And Sony, as you might know, is rumored to be doing a full-frame SLT, and that would be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Canon came out with a mirrorless camera that could use all of my existing lenses, I would certainly consider it. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
There is the little nostalgia thing, you know, hearing that shutter click and all of that, but, you know...
And there's a visceral aspect to it too. It might sound a bit, it's not like, you know, you speak to a pilot and they go, yeah, when I pull that joystick back and I'm getting the G's, I mean, that's a visceral experience, you know. But at the same time, when you press that shutter release, and you do actually feel the mechanism fire.
Yeah.
Not just hear it, you feel it.
Yeah.
And when you take that away, it feels eerie in a way. And it gives you that some sort of nice feedback in a way. And Nikon understands this, because when they produced the Nikon 1 system, which I think are fantastic cameras as well, they did two versions, the V1 and the J1. And in the J1, it's an electronic shutter only. It doesn't need a physical shutter. But they put one in, the V1. And they went, oh yeah, it's because it can do a faster flash sync speed. But actually, it's because you can feel it and hear it. And people like that sound and the feeling. That's mostly why they put it in.
Because when you hear it, it releases endorphins inside your body. It's like, okay. No, I'm kidding.
Didn't you say you liked the way the Mark III clicks?
Yeah, no, I do. I like the way
the
it
sound
sounds.
of it. I love that sound. Like, why? Why is it important?
I don't know why. I like it. Maybe just because it's different than the Mark III.
It's funny though.
Lotus, have you been in an expensive car? I assume you have, Lotus, at some point.
In an expensive car? Oh,
Yeah.
I've never been in one.
Do you own or have you been in an expensive car?
Lotus drives a Ferrari, Gordon.
I assume so.
I have a few, you know.
Yeah,
summer
in your fleet. If you get in an expensive car and close the door, you're like, wow, that sounds nothing like the door closing on my car.
Yeah.
That sounds really nice. And it's like, it's just the door closing. And it's the same as the shutter on the camera. It's silly, but there's something nice about it, you know?
Yeah, oh no, I totally get it. I know there's that sense, that feeling. Like I was saying, like people who want to turn the pages of the book. There's nothing really logical or practical about it. It's something they're attached to.
I have a similar...
I was shooting at a family event a couple of weeks ago, and I had my D3S there, and the people in my family didn't understand that the camera actually did make that noise. They assumed it was an electronic sound that was being put out by my camera.
Wow.
Because that's what all of their cameras do.
I personally...
the whole sound thing, it's nice. It's also nice, you know, look at on the flip side of that, a silent camera is a great camera at a wedding or something. I hate listening to watching a wedding video and it's just all the time. It's like, there should be an announcement, you know, if it's a photographer's wedding where there's loads of photographers and they don't understand it, you'd say, everyone with mechanical shutters, stop shooting. Only electronic shutters for the next 5 minutes. You know,
I actually had a woman get very angry with me at a concert just because I was standing right behind her and she could hear my camera clicking.
Oh, yeah.
She got very angry with me and she turned around and told me to stop the clicking.
It's a big deal. I mean, when I'm taking photos for CineQuest, I'm sitting in the front row with about a half a dozen photographers, and we're all there to do the same thing. We're all taking 40 or 50 shots of whoever the actor, actress, director is. And I got to tell you, the people around us, they've had to put up with a lot over the years because that's all they hear, and they're trying to hear the interview. So we actually all sit there trying to make a determination of how many times we're actually going to take a shot and which ones we're going to keep, because you start to contain yourself because that's all you hear.
Yeah. I was at I think it was a photo, like a Joe McNally presentation or something along those lines, and they were showing a slideshow and there'd be a new picture pop up, and for some reason someone in the audience felt the need to take a picture of the slide every single time it changed, and it really threw off the whole feel of, because there's music to the slideshow, and it's like, come on, do you need to take a photo every single time? It's a slideshow. So I can really understand. With the stuff I shoot, I don't do weddings or anything where it has to be quiet. I'm just usually by myself when I'm doing my photography, so that I can totally understand how in a wedding or any kind of concert that's not loud, then yeah, that'd be really annoying.
There's a guy called Mike Seneschal, I don't know if I pronounced your name right, yes, Mike, on the chat, right, who says that the biggest sensor in a mirrorless camera is APS-C at best. Technically, Mike, that's not strictly true. The Leica M9 has a full-frame 36 by 24 millimeter sensor. It is also the price of the space shuttle. So, it depends what you what you want to spend your money on, but technically there is a full-frame mirrorless camera. But the comment that got me there at the end of his sentence, he goes, in digital photography, sensor is king because it defines the quality, and that's the most important thing. It is and it isn't. That, to me, is a very small part of what a camera is. Yes, of course, ultimately, it is delivering a photo at the end of the day. But if the camera is too big or too slow or too whatever else, you're not going to use it. Like the Nikon V1 and J1, tiny little sensor, so the image quality is not going to be anywhere near this. But they were firing at 10, 30, or 60 frames a second with continuous autofocus, and they were continuously autofocusing for video. They were doing things. They were letting me take photos of my kids running around and at parties and things that I could not achieve with any other camera unless it was, say, a 1D Mark IV or a D3S. And doing so at a sub $1,000 price point. And there was just so much more about a camera than just the image quality. The handling is very, very important, because if this camera won't focus fast enough, it might have the best quality in the world, but if it won't focus fast enough, you've missed the shot. If it's too heavy and you've left it at home, you haven't got the shot. There are so many, if it needs to be water resistant and it's raining and you didn't take it out because of that, or there's chalk flying everywhere, you've not got the shot. So there's all these different aspects, and yeah, ultimately the image quality is very, very, very important, but there's a lot of other things, and that's the thing I always try and get across in my reviews. I look at all those other things, the things that aren't necessarily so easy to measure, that you don't have charts for.
Gordon, what about medium format cameras on the high end? Is there anything that you like there, and do you think there's value, or are they too expensive, or what's your thoughts on those?
Well, there's obviously two types. You're talking about medium format digital. There's obviously medium format film, which digital was my last film camera. I used to have a medium format film, was my last film camera, and I shot concurrently with that with a DSLR. And I loved the quality that I was getting, not just the size of the frame, but the size of the frame dictates the coverage with the focal length of the lens. What that all means is that a 50mm lens on medium format is actually a wide-angle lens, but yet it still delivers the depth of field and perspective that you're used to on other formats. So what you're getting, imagine getting a really wide-angle photo without any of that distortion, or and also with a kind of almost semi-flattened perspective. You get a really different look with medium format, and that's what I really like about it, and that still has the appeal on digital. I have a friend here in Queenstown who has a Phase 1 60 megapixel camera, and that is a really sweet camera. I borrowed, Phase 1 were here in town just before Christmas, and they lent me the 80 megapixel back and a body for that, and I took a couple of test shots at it for a few hours. Well, I mean, those pictures were unbelievable. They had so much detail. One of the interesting things about, say, the D800D is that medium format doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter most of the time, so you manage the wire yourself. But there wasn't any. It was just detail, detail, detail. And it was a beautiful thing. But one of the things I'm going to try doing is getting the D800, put it on its side, take two pictures, and suddenly you've got a sensor and total resolution that's equivalent to one of those 60 megapixel backs. So if you can be bothered to take two photos and stitch them together, let's see how close it gets. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be testing. But for me, it's about the perspective more than the detail. The perspective.
Now, what is the price on that Phase 1 that you were testing?
Oh, again, you don't want to know. It's like, it makes the Leica M9 look cheap.
Right.
They wouldn't even tell me, I was talking to these guys about it, and I said, look, how much is it? They went, oh, it's what it is, and it's like, no, it's not what it is. Tell me how much it costs. And they're like, it's really good. It's a great product. And you're like, yeah, I know. And this went on for a while, and I thought, clearly, it's one of those situations where if you have to ask, it's not for you.
Right.
It's again when that's when the last sound of the luxury car door closing is when I'm being kicked out of the showroom because I can't afford it. It's like, now get out. And that's normally how most conversations end with me in showrooms.
Yeah, they are nice. Now, what about your own photography, Gordon? How long have you been shooting? What was your first camera you owned?
Well, I started off on 110 film when I was in single figures. Okay. I loved photography. My dad was always taking pictures. I'm going to show you a picture, actually. I brought along some pictures of my old cameras. I wonder if I share my desktop and then do this. Are you seeing a bunch of pictures now?
I am.
Yeah.
Cool. This was one of my first cameras. This was a Praktika MTL3. This was an East German film SLR. I inherited this from my father when I was in my teens. And this camera was so loud. The shutter on this, we're talking about loud shutters. This shutter was so loud, especially at a 30th of a second, that when you clicked it, people would turn around. It was like crowds would stop and turn. The whole flocks of doves would take off into the air. It was like a movie moment. And when I first got this camera, I dabbled with street photography for about 5 minutes. But when you're trying to do street photography, you put yourself in a nice discreet location, you press the button, and everyone turns around. Then you've blown it. You've blown your cover on your first shot. So
about what year was that, Gordon?
This was in 1984 was when I had it, and this camera was on sale from the mid-70s to the mid-80s. Let me find.
Which country was that camera from? Which country was that from?
It was from what they called at the time East Germany.
Oh, okay.
But it's now just Germany. My first camera was one of these. This was a 110. Anyone have one of these?
Oh,
this was a
110. Oh, 110, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
what it took.
Yep, I had one of those.
These were the cards. Did you, however, have one? Did I get a picture? Did you have one of these?
Oh my God! I do know what that is.
I didn't have one of those. I had a Sony Mavica, though, that you put floppy disks in.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is where you can clearly see their inspiration for that. This was the Mavica of the 70s. But then from the Praktika, I went to this camera. Now, this was still one of my favorite cameras ever.
Oh.
This was a Pentax ME Super. Again, this is a mid-80s camera to maybe early 90s. This is the camera that all photography students yearn after. This is an Olympus OM. This was tiny. It still is tiny. It's so small. And this is the question lots of people are always asking. They're like, why are full-frame DSLRs so big? Because this is, after all, a full-frame SLR. It takes 35mm film, and obviously the battery's not as big and blah, blah, blah. But you get this massive viewfinder, massive frame in this tiny little box. And this was the first Pentax, I think, with aperture priority. So it was a semi-automatic, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I had that camera for a few years. And then I went on to, after that, I switched again. I wasn't brand loyal. I had a Nikon F801 after that. This was, I mean, look at that. It's a bit like a Cylon. It's got that kind of stripe across the head.
Beautiful.
It was beautiful, but not so beautiful that I didn't sell it as soon as this baby came out. This is actually, it's funny we're talking about the 5D Mark III. This is the original Canon EOS 5.
Yeah.
This was the first film SLR which had 5 AF points. Prior to this, they had 1 or 3. This had 5.
Amazing.
Yeah. But more important than that, and notice it has a pop-up flash as well, which they didn't on the digital version. More kind of cool in terms of tech. This camera had eye control. It was almost like Firefox with Clint Eastwood. Except you'd have to think in Russian. With this, it would actually the active auto-focusing point was the one you were looking at. If you kind of stared, but you had to give it a real kind of Paddington Bear hard stare. If you give it a really hard stare, it would switch AF points. And then there was this little one in the top left corner that if you glanced at it, it would give you a depth of field preview through the viewfinder. Except that if you had any kind of nervous tick or something, you were constantly glancing around and the picture was going light and dark. So they didn't replicate this on there. They never used the eye control after that. But yeah, eye control, and that was in the early 90s. That was my Mamiya 7.2. This was my beloved medium format film until I realized that I cannot hold a straight horizon. I don't know if the viewfinder was squint or I was squint, but everything was squint. So I solved that. But the squint quality was amazing. As long as you weren't taking pictures of anything straight or with a horizon in it, it was brilliant.
Fix it in post.
Yeah, well, yeah. Except you had to scan the film, and any people scanning that sort of stuff were, well, anyway, it was very expensive.
Now, you got some of your other pictures in here too, huh?
Yeah, this is a picture I took last night, or was it 2 nights ago? This is a picture with the 5D Mark III.
Oh.
With the 85mm f1.8. It's a 5-second exposure of what they call the Large Magellanic Cloud, which is a very prominent feature of the night sky in the southern hemisphere. It's a huge galaxy that's close to the Milky Way. I can show you a kind of wider field. This is what it says: the Milky Way going from bottom left to top right, and you can see the Large Magellanic Cloud towards the bottom right. That's a 24mm shot. So that's what you see if you're in New Zealand or Australia or Chile or Antarctica. This is what you see when you look up. But the nice thing about this, and you can download these pictures from cameralabs.com. I put them up there, full resolution. They're on Flickr. I did them at 6400 and 12,800 ISO, and they're incredible.
Isn't that something? 12,800.
Yeah, I mean that's at 1:1, I think. And obviously you can see a bit of star trailing there, but there's very little noise on that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's going to be a very popular camera with astro people. Here, this is fun. When you're taking pictures with insane resolution, you become a pixel peeper. And I am a professional measure baiter, I think some people call them. And you're just constantly looking at these pixels and looking out for stuff. This is the shot over jet. This is a great thing you can do in Queenstown. I took this picture, and then, of course, when I got home afterwards, I noticed this. Why isn't it dragging along here? Let me see. See this guy in the middle?
Yeah. That's great.
What's he up to?
He's checking you out.
He is. He's going, I've got a Mark III as well.
Yeah.
But this was kind of showing, he was going, hey, the AF is now, the continuous shooting is now good enough that you can actually take a picture like that.
Nice.
In terms of the pictures that I like taking, having realized that street photography was not for me, I love travel, so most of them are kind of like travel pictures and big wide-angle travel pictures. So pictures like this, which was taken on the Bolivian Altiplano. Thank you. This was with the 17-40 on an original 5D, and I loved, this was a 17mm, a bit too obvious on the polarizer. This again, just big kind of wide-angle views.
Beautiful.
What I'm really into.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Beautiful reflection.
Lotus, you asked me about the Pudding Club.
Yeah, it's in your about on G+, being in the Pudding Club.
Yeah, this is a British institution, as featured on Rick Stein's Food Heroes, and what they do is they realise that British people love puddings, and these are proper these are not cakes, these are or tarts, they're puddings, which means they're generally sponges made with suet or shortening, which is beef fat, which horrifies people who've never used suet in baking. But as indeed it should, beef fat, what's going on? But honestly, if you're into kind of sweet desserts, they are awesome. So there's this place called a Pudding Club, where they serve a really superficial main course, and then after that it turns into like this pudding buffet, and it's about celebrating the pudding, and the idea is to eat as many puddings as you can. This is me early in the evening, I think on sticky toffee.
This love
is me later on, not feeling so well. I won't show you what happened after that. I had 13
of them?
There were actually 8 or 9 puddings that night, so I almost lapped myself twice.
All right. Well, we do have to at this point we do have to cut off the actual broadcast. Otherwise, we won't be able to have a usable video for YouTube because it.
So we'll end up with the beef fat pudding club story.
Yeah, we'll end up with that. But we are coming right back. We're coming right back for the chat room to have question and answers with Gordon Laing. So everybody, come right back to my stream. Restart the video. We have to end it, otherwise we can't trim it on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're going to end it now, and then everybody come right back, and we'll spend a few more minutes with Gordon taking questions from the chat room. So
Cool. See you soon. Thanks for having me.
thank you, Gordon, and thank you
Thank
to
you,
all of our
Gordon.
panelists tonight.
Okay.
Thank you
And,
very much.
Bye.
we'll see you guys in a few seconds.
Okay.